My sister said Dad never trusted me. She said it at the dinner table 3 days after his funeral. Not privately, not gently. She said it in front of my mother, my aunt, 2 of Dad's closest friends, and my husband. I remember exactly what she said. Dad knew you couldn't be trusted with money. I looked at her. What? She folded her arms. He told me. My mother immediately said, Sarah, this isn't the time. But my sister didn't stop. He said Emily was too emotional, too impulsive. He didn't think she could handle the estate. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad had died 5 days earlier. I was still wearing the black dress from the funeral. And my sister was telling everyone that our father had spent his final years preparing to protect himself from me. I asked her, why would you say that? She shrugged. Because you keep asking about the will. I've asked one question. You've asked who gets the house, because I don't know. You don't need to know. That sentence made me angry. It's Dad's house. And I'm his daughter. So am I. We stared at each other. Then my sister leaned forward. Dad trusted me. Those words hurt more than I expected. Not because of the inheritance, because I had spent my entire life believing the opposite. Dad and I had always been close, or at least I thought we were. And now my sister was telling me that everything I remembered about our relationship was wrong. Then, the next morning, Dad's lawyer called. He asked me to come to his office alone. When I arrived, he didn't start by talking about the will. Instead, he opened a drawer. He pulled out a plain brown envelope. My name was written on the front. Underneath it were 5 words in Dad's handwriting. Read after my funeral. The lawyer pushed it across the desk. Then he said, your father left this specifically for you. I stared at the envelope. My hands started shaking. Because if Dad had written something for me before he died, there was only one question I could think of. Why had he waited until after his funeral to tell me? My name is Emily. I'm 39 years old. My sister Sarah is 42. Our father, Michael, was 79 when he died. He owned a small construction company and several properties around our town. He wasn't rich in the way people imagine when they hear the word estate. He didn't own yachts. He didn't have expensive cars. He drove the same pickup truck for almost 15 years. But Dad had built his life carefully. He bought property when it was cheap. He saved money. He invested in businesses he understood, and he never borrowed money unless he absolutely had to. By the time he died, he had accumulated more than enough to make an inheritance worth fighting over, which was exactly what I was afraid would happen. Sarah had always been more practical than me. She was organized, confident, good with numbers. She worked in finance. She could sit down with a spreadsheet and understand it in seconds. I was different. I worked in education. I cared about people. I wasn't good at negotiating. I hated confrontation. Dad used to joke that if someone tried to sell me a broken chair, I'd apologize for not buying two. Sarah loved that joke. She repeated it constantly. Emily couldn't negotiate her way out of a paper bag. Dad would laugh. I'd roll my eyes. It was harmless. Or at least I thought it was. But over the years, Sarah began using that difference between us to explain everything. Why she handled Dad's bills. Why she organized his appointments. Why she had access to his accounts. Why Dad asked her to review business documents. She was the practical daughter. I was the emotional one. At least, that's what everyone believed. After Dad's health began declining, Sarah became even more involved. She took him to appointments. She managed his medications. She handled the utility bills. She helped with the company. I lived about 2 hours away, so I couldn't be there every day. But I visited every weekend. Every Saturday morning, I'd drive to Dad's house. I'd bring groceries. Sometimes I cook. Sometimes we'd sit outside. Dad loved sitting on the back porch. He had an old wooden chair that creaked every time he moved. I'd sit beside him. We'd drink coffee. He'd tell me stories I'd already heard 10 times. I never got tired of them. One Saturday, about 8 months before he died, he asked me, "Are you worried about me?" I smiled. "Should I be?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Your sister worries too much." I laughed. "She'll be offended if she hears you say that." "She won't." "How do you know?" "How do you know?" "Because she knows I'm right." I smiled. Then Dad became quiet. After a while, he said, "There's something you need to understand." "What?" "Don't let anyone make you feel like you're less capable just because you don't do things the way they do." I looked at him. Where did that come from? He shrugged. "Nowhere." But it didn't feel like nowhere. It felt like a warning. A few months later, Sarah called me. "Dad wants to change the way the estate is handled." "What does that mean?" "He wants me to manage everything." "Okay, you're fine with that?" "Why wouldn't I be?" She paused. "Because it affects you." "How?" "There's a lot of money involved." I laughed. Sarah, I trust you. She didn't laugh. That's not the point. What is the point? You need to understand that Dad doesn't think you're good with money. I felt something shift inside me. Did he say that? Yes. When? I don't remember. Exactly what did he say? He said you make emotional decisions. I was quiet. Then I asked, did he say he didn't trust me? Sarah hesitated. Not in those exact words, but that's what you meant. Emily, I'm just telling you what Dad said. I didn't argue, but after we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called Dad that evening. He answered, "Hi, sweetheart. Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think I'm irresponsible?" There was silence. "What?" Sarah said you don't trust me with money. Another silence. Then Dad laughed softly. "Your sister talks too much." "So she made it up?" "I didn't say that." "Then what did you say?" He sighed. "Emily, you don't need to worry about what happens after I'm gone." "That's not what I asked." "I know. Do you trust me?" His voice changed. Yes, it was immediate. No hesitation. "Yes, I trust you." I closed my eyes. Then why would Sarah say otherwise? Because she sees things differently, that's all? That's all? I wanted to ask more, but Dad said, "Come Saturday. I will leave Iba something to show you." "What?" "You'll see." Saturday never came. Dad died on Thursday. He was in his workshop when it happened. Sarah was with him. I was at work when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Then I saw Sarah's name. I picked up. Sarah, she was crying. "Emily, what happened?" "Dad's gone." I stopped breathing. "What?" "He collapsed." I stopped breathing. "What?" "He collapsed." I couldn't speak. "Emily, Dad died." Everything after that became blurry. The drive, the hospital, my mother's crying, Sarah sitting in a chair with her hands covering her face, the funeral, the flowers, the people, the speeches, the endless cups of coffee, and then the dinner 3 days later. When Sarah told everyone Dad didn't trust me, that night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Dad's final phone call. "Come Saturday. I have something to show you." What had he wanted to show me? Why hadn't he told me? Was it the will, a bank account, a letter, something about the house? I had no idea. The next morning, I called Dad's lawyer, Thomas Reed. He had handled Dad's legal affairs for nearly 20 years. "Thomas, I need to ask you something." "Of course. Did Dad leave a will?" "Yes." "Has it been read?" "Not yet." "Did Sarah tell you Dad didn't trust me?" There was a pause. "Yes." My heart sank. "What did you tell her?" "That your father's estate would be handled according to his legal documents." "Did Dad ever say he didn't trust me?" Thomas didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "I think you should come to my office." "Why?" "There's something your father left here." "What?" "I'd rather show you in person." I drove there the next morning. Thomas was waiting. He looked serious. Not sad. Serious. He closed the door behind me. Then he walked to a filing cabinet. He opened the top drawer, pulled out a brown envelope, and placed it on the desk. I recognized Dad's handwriting immediately. My name, Emily. Underneath, "Read after my funeral." I touched the envelope. "What's inside?" "I don't know." "You don't know. Your father gave it to me sealed." "When?" 3 weeks before he died." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because he told me not to." I stared at him. "What did he say?" Thomas sat down. He said, "Emily will probably think Sarah knows everything. She doesn't." My heart started beating faster. "What does that mean?" Thomas shook his head. "I don't know." Then he added, "He also told me something else." "What?" "If you ever came to me after his funeral because Sarah claimed he didn't trust you, I was supposed to give you this." I looked at the envelope again. "What did Dad know?" Thomas said, "That's what I think you should find out." My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside was a letter, 6 pages. Dad's handwriting. The first line said, "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone." I had to stop. I couldn't continue. Thomas gave me a glass of water. I drank it. Then I started again. "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I wish I could have given you this letter myself. I know Sarah has always been the organized one. I know she believes that makes her more responsible. Sometimes she's right, sometimes she's not." I looked at Thomas. He said nothing. I continued, "If Sarah tells you I didn't trust you, don't believe her." My eyes filled with tears. I kept reading. "I trusted you with something different." The next paragraph made no sense to me. "Your sister thinks the person who controls the paperwork controls the truth. She doesn't." I stopped. "What does that mean?" Thomas said, "Keep reading." I did. I asked Sarah to help with my finances because she was good at it. That doesn't mean I wanted her to decide everything. There are documents she doesn't know about. My hands became cold. Then I reached the line that changed everything. And there is one document I am asking you to protect until the time is right. I looked at Thomas. What document? He pointed to the next page. Dad had written, the original property agreement for the family house. I stared at the words. What? Thomas leaned forward. Did you know your father placed the house into a separate agreement years ago? No, neither did Sarah. How do you know? Because she tried to transfer it. My stomach dropped. What? Thomas nodded. That's one reason I asked you to come. I suddenly remembered Sarah's phone call. He wants me to manage everything. She had never said transfer. She had never said sell. But now I understood. Sarah had been preparing the estate before Dad died, and she had apparently assumed the house belonged to the estate. Dad had done something else. He had placed the house into a separate family trust years earlier, and my name was one of the beneficiaries. I looked at Thomas. Why would Dad hide this? He didn't hide it from you. I didn't know. He wanted to tell you. When? Thomas looked at me. 3 weeks before he died. The same time he had given him the envelope. I remembered Dad's last call. Come Saturday. I have something to show you. He had known. He had planned to tell me. Then he died. I read the rest of the letter. Sarah will probably be angry. Let her be angry. She thinks protecting the family means controlling everything. You think protecting the family means keeping everyone together. Neither of you is completely right. That sounded exactly like Dad. Then, the house is not yours because I want you to have a prize. It is protected because I don't want either of you to be able to use it against the other. I wiped my eyes. Dad had always hated arguments over money. He had once told me, money makes people think they are keeping score. Now I understood. He had created a structure where neither Sarah nor I could simply take everything. Then I reached the final page. At the top was written, one more thing. I read, Sarah will tell you that she handled everything because I couldn't trust you. That isn't true. I asked her to handle things because she was nearby. I asked you to handle something else because I knew you would keep your word. I stopped. What had I promised? Then I remembered. 2 years earlier, Dad had asked me to help him with something. He had wanted to create a scholarship for students in our town. He asked me to promise that if he couldn't finish it, I would. I had agreed. I have forgotten about it. Dad hadn't. The letter continued, you promised me you would make sure the scholarship continued after I was gone. I knew you would. That is why I trusted you. I started crying, not because of the money, because Dad had remembered a promise I had almost forgotten. But the final paragraph was the one that shocked me. There is something else you need to know about Sarah. I looked at Thomas. He said, read it. I did. Sarah believes she is protecting this family. She isn't trying to hurt you, but she has made one mistake. She thinks I gave her control because I gave her responsibility. I did not. I gave her responsibility because I needed help. I gave you the letter because I needed honesty. Then Dad wrote, if Sarah tries to tell you that I chose her over you, show her this letter. Then ask her one question. I turned the page. There was only one sentence. Why did Dad ask you to sign the document you never told me about? I looked up. What document? Thomas's expression changed. That, he said, is the question I've been trying to answer. Sarah arrived at Thomas's office an hour later. She looked angry. Why did you call me? Thomas said, because there is an issue with the estate. She looked at me. You. I didn't respond. Thomas placed a document on the table. Did you sign this? Sarah looked at it. Yes. What is it? A transfer authorization. For the house. Yes. For the house? Yes. Who asked you to sign it? Sarah hesitated. Dad. When? Before he died. Did he explain what it was? Yes. What did he say? What it was? Yes. What did he say? That he wanted me to handle the house. Thomas looked at her. Did he tell you the house was held in a separate trust? Sarah went silent. No. Did you know? No. Then why did you attempt to transfer it? Sarah looked at me. I didn't. Thomas pointed to the signature. Your signature is here. She stared at it, then whispered, I thought it was part of the estate paperwork. I looked at her. You signed something you didn't understand? I trusted Dad. Thomas said, that is exactly the problem. Sarah became defensive. Why are you making this about me? Because you told everyone Dad didn't trust Emily. I was repeating what he said. No, Thomas replied. You were repeating your interpretation. Sarah looked furious. He told me Emily was irresponsible. He said Emily was emotional. That means the same thing. No. Bryce to her, Emily the same thing. No. Thomas opened Dad's letter. Your father explicitly wrote that he trusted Emily. Sarah's face changed. Where did you get that? Your father left it for her. She looked at me. You knew about this. I got it this morning. What does it say? I handed it to her. She read silently. Her eyes moved across the page. When she finished, she sat down. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then she whispered, "He never told me." I said, "He didn't tell me either." She looked at me. "Then why did he leave you the letter?" "Because he wanted me to understand." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Of course. What does that mean?" "You were always the one he protected." I shook my head. "No." "Yes, he protected both of us. You got the house. You got the company. I got the company because I worked for him. And I got the trust because Dad didn't want you to lose the house." She stared at me. Then she said, "You don't understand." "Then explain it." Sarah finally told us the truth. She had been terrified. Dad's health was deteriorating. The company was struggling. There were unpaid invoices. Several clients owed money. She had discovered that Dad had personally guaranteed some business loans. She was afraid that when he died, creditors would come after everything. So she started reorganizing the estate. She contacted banks. She reviewed accounts. She spoke with the company's accountant. She prepared documents. Then she found out Dad had created a separate trust. She didn't understand why. She assumed he had forgotten to tell her, so she tried to correct it. That's what the transfer authorization was. She believed she was protecting the estate, but there was more. Sarah admitted she had also found an older document. It showed that Dad had deliberately separated the house from the company. She didn't tell anyone. Why? Because she thought if I knew, I would demand control. I looked at her. "Did you really think that of me?" She started crying. "I didn't know what you would do. You could have asked." I was scared. "So you told everyone Dad didn't trust me." She wiped her face. "I thought it would make things easier. It made everything worse." "I know." Thomas then revealed something neither of us knew. Dad had anticipated exactly this. He had created a second document, a statement explaining why the trust existed, and he had recorded a video explaining it. Sarah looked at him. "There's a video?" "Yes." "Where?" "On your father's old computer." We all went silent. Thomas opened the laptop. There was one file, no title, just a date, the day before Dad died. He pressed play. Dad appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but he was smiling. "Hello, Emily." My heart broke. Then he looked at the camera. "Hello, Sarah." My sister covered her mouth. Dad continued, "If you're watching this, then I didn't get to have the conversation I wanted." He paused. "I know you two are probably angry with each other." Sarah started crying. Dad smiled. "You always were." He continued, "Sarah, you think you are responsible for this family." My sister looked at the screen. "You are." Then Dad said, "But responsibility isn't control." Sarah closed her eyes. "Emily, you think avoiding conflict keeps the peace." I swallowed. "It doesn't." Dad smiled. "Sometimes you have to say no." I started crying. "Both of you have spent too much time trying to prove that you're the better daughter." He paused. "Stop." The room was completely silent. Then he said, "There is no better daughter." Sarah was crying openly now. Dad continued, "There are two daughters, two different lives, two different strengths. And I love both of you." He took a breath. "The house is protected because I don't want either of you using it as a weapon. The company is Sarah's responsibility because she understands it. The trust is Emily's responsibility because she understands people. And the scholarship is Emily's promise because she gave me her word." Then Dad looked directly into the camera. "If you two are fighting over money after I'm gone, then you missed the point." The video ended. Nobody moved. Sarah finally whispered, "He knew." I nodded. He knew everything. She looked at me. I was wrong. I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I thought Dad trusted me more because he gave me the company. He trusted you with the company." I know. "No, you need to understand the difference." She looked down. "He trusted you with something too." She nodded. "The family." I smiled through my tears. "Not exactly." "What then?" "His promise." The estate was settled over the next several months. The company stayed with Sarah. The house remained protected under the trust. The investments were divided according to Dad's original plan. The scholarship was established in Dad's name. And Sarah and I stopped talking about who Dad trusted more, because eventually we understood that it had never been a competition. Dad had simply known us. He knew Sarah needed responsibility. He knew I needed confidence. He knew Sarah would try to control things when she was afraid. He knew I would avoid confrontation when I was hurt. And he left each of us something that forced us to grow. The scholarship became more successful than either of us expected. Every year we selected 2 students, one studying construction management, one studying education. Dad would have loved that. Sarah handled the financial side, I handled the students. For the first time, we were doing something together without competing. One evening, after the first scholarship ceremony, Sarah said, "Dad would be proud." I smiled. He would probably complain about the speeches. She laughed. He hated long speeches. He hated meetings. He hated meetings. He hated meetings. He hated paperwork. He hated paying taxes. We both laughed. Then Sarah became quiet. I still wish I could talk to him. Me too. She looked at me. "Do you ever read the letter?" I handed it to her. She read it again. When she reached the line, "If Sarah tells you that I chose her over you, show her this letter." She started crying. I hate that he knew I'd say that. I said, "He knew you." She smiled sadly. He really did. There was one thing I never told Sarah. The night before Dad's funeral, I had stood alone in his office. I opened the drawer. I found the old folder, the one I had seen months earlier. Inside was the original estate plan, equal distribution. The house protected, the company assigned to Sarah, the scholarship assigned to me. Everything Dad had told me was true. Sarah hadn't been lying about everything. She had simply misunderstood one thing. Dad had never stopped trusting me. And he had never stopped trusting her either. He had simply trusted us differently. Sometimes people think trust means giving someone complete control. It doesn't. Trust can mean giving someone responsibility. It can mean believing someone will keep a promise. It can mean knowing someone will make mistakes and still believing they'll learn. Dad's trust wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in what he expected from us. Sarah was expected to build the company. I was expected to protect the scholarship. Both were difficult. Both mattered. Neither was a reward. A year after Dad died, I found the brown envelope again. The one marked, "Read after my funeral." I had kept it in a drawer. I opened it. Dad's handwriting looked exactly the same. I read the first line, "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone." Then I smiled. Because I realized something. The letter wasn't really about the inheritance. It was about what Dad wanted to say when he couldn't be there to say it himself. He knew my sister would speak first. He knew she would have explanations. He knew I would doubt myself. So he left me something stronger than an argument. His own words. His own voice. His own instructions. I still think about that sentence Sarah said at the dinner table. "Dad never trusted you." For a few hours I believed it. That's the part that hurts. Not that my sister said it. That I believed it. Because when someone tells you that the person you love most didn't trust you, you start questioning every memory, every conversation, every hug. Every time your father said he was proud of you, you wonder whether you imagined it. But Dad had prepared for that too. He left proof. Not proof that I was the favorite. Proof that there was no favorite. Proof that he loved us differently, without loving one of us less. Sarah and I still disagree. We argue, sometimes badly. But now, when we disagree, we don't talk about Dad's money. We don't compare what he gave us. We don't ask who got more. Because we've learned what Dad was trying to teach us. Family isn't a ledger. Love isn't a ledger. Trust isn't a ledger. You can't add up someone's sacrifices and subtract their mistakes and come up with a number that tells you how much they loved you. Dad knew that. We didn't. Not until after he was gone. The final thing Dad left me was not the letter. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the trust. It wasn't even the scholarship. It was a sentence he said on the video. "Sometimes, you have to say no." That changed me. I started saying no. When someone tried to take advantage of me, I said no. When someone dismissed my opinion, I spoke. When I disagreed with Sarah, I told her. When I felt afraid, I stopped pretending I wasn't. Dad had spent years believing I could do those things. I had spent years believing I couldn't. The letter made me realize he had trusted me long before I learned to trust myself. And Sarah changed too. She stopped trying to handle everything alone. She started asking questions. She admitted when she didn't understand something. She apologized more. She listened more. And sometimes, when she gets overwhelmed, she calls me. Not because I know more about money. Because she knows I'll listen. That's something Dad understood about both of us. Sarah knew how to manage numbers. I knew how to manage people. Neither skill was better. They were simply different. The family house is still standing. The back porch is still there. The wooden chair still creaks. Dad's workshop has been cleaned out, but we kept the old sign. The one that says, "Michael Reed Construction." Sarah hung it in the office. Underneath it, she added a small plaque. It says, "Responsibility is not ownership." Trust is not control. Family is not a competition. She asked me if I thought Dad would like it. I said he'd say it's too sentimental. She laughed. Then he'd secretly love it. Exactly. Every year on Dad's birthday, Sarah and I sit on the porch. We bring coffee. We talk about him. Sometimes we laugh. Sometimes we cry. And every year, we read the letter again. Not because we've forgotten, because we don't want to. The first time Sarah read it, she said, "I wish he told me all of this." I told her he did. She looked at me. When? I pointed toward the house. Every day. She didn't answer. She understood. Dad never told us which daughter he trusted more. Because there wasn't one. He trusted Sarah with the company. He trusted me with the promise. He trusted both of us to eventually understand each other. And when he realized he wouldn't live long enough to explain everything, he left behind an envelope. 5 simple words on the front. Read after my funeral. At the time, I thought the envelope might contain information about money. I thought it might explain the will. I thought it might tell me why Dad had supposedly stopped trusting me. Instead, it told me something much more important. Dad had never stopped trusting me. He had never stopped trusting Sarah either. He simply knew that love doesn't always look the same. And sometimes, the person who says you weren't trusted is actually the person who hasn't yet understood what trust looks like. My sister thought Dad had chosen her over me. I thought he'd chosen her too. But Dad had never been choosing between us. He had been preparing both of us for a life without him. And the envelope he left behind was his final lesson. Not about inheritance. Not about money. About trust. About responsibility. And about 2 sisters who spent years thinking they were competing for their father's love, only to discover, after his funeral, that they had both already had it.